Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go! So I was out rail fanning last night. A rail fan, rail buff or train buff, railway enthusiast or railway buff, train spotter or ferroequinologist is a person interested recreationally in rail transport. Rail fans of many ages can be found worldwide. Yes, I copied and pasted the definition from Google. An entitled mother didn't like me standing at railroad crossing at 3 p.m. on Friday. I was standing at the main street crossing at my local town where there was a CSX main line. CSX ran a lot of trains through my small town. I'm not gonna specify where as to not expose myself. I am well known in this town for this as the guy who likes trains. I have been harassed and bullied at school for my rail fanning enjoyment. Anyways, a 20-year-old woman, I assume, comes up to me with a mask on, with a classic cut a hole in the center saying, "Excuse me," and I say to myself, "Oh no," and I responded with, "Can I help you, ma'am?" She responded with, "What on earth are you doing?" I said, "Rail fanning." She just had a confused look, so I pulled it up on Google on my phone and showed it to her on Google. And she responded with, "Why are you trespassing on a railroad's property?" I responded with, "First of all, this is a public sidewalk. Second, when I'm not here, I stand 30 feet from the track." Karen interrupted me with screaming about how ridiculous I am being, and how I should be arrested for trespassing, and read a book about how teens these days need to stop making stuff up. I start recording and then she threatened to call the police. Good luck, because everyone in this town understands what I'm doing and why and so on. Meaning if she did call the cops, she would be exposed for lying about me harassing her. She calls the police and one of the cops who were calling, Chris, shows up. He steps out of the police car and I say, "Good afternoon, Chris. Pretty nice day for some rail fanning." Fun fact, Chris and I rail fan together quite a bit and he would have my side, as we had Karens harass us but never call the police. Chris says, "Good afternoon, Ohio. How is the family?" Karen's face goes pale, and then she demanded that he should arrest me for harassment and that I assaulted her, blah blah blah. And then Chris asked both sides, and since there was a couple who was eating outside at a table across the street, they were questioned. Neither of me or Karen knew that they were paying attention to the conversation. So Karen was charged with harassment, false use of 911, and probably a few more. The end. This happened to me 12 years ago. My husband and I had a whirlwind romance that lasted a year. We knew we wanted to be together after only a week, but dated for a year to be absolutely sure. My family hated him. They thought that we hadn't been together long enough to get married. They didn't like that he worked as a farmhand, and when I introduced him to my extended family, my uncle even offered to marry him in the back 40 for me. Not a very pleasant thing to have happened. So we decided that we should just go to the courthouse and elope. But this wouldn't be an entitled mom story if it stopped there. I began getting pressure from my mom to have an actual wedding. So when my husband and I discussed it, we figured it would be fine as long as it was very small. We didn't have much money and neither of our families wanted to help out all that much. We settled on having a small ceremony with just the parents and siblings in a natural setting, like a woodland or park. But no, that wouldn't work for my mom. We had to have it in the backyard because it would be easier. Fine, whatever. We picked a date for the wedding, but no, that date wouldn't suit my mom because she wanted to go to a quilt show. So again, fine, whatever. We settled again and again until a date was picked out by her for our wedding. I know I should have put my foot down, but my mother is very manipulative and used my father to get what she wanted every single time. My father was a very kind man and all she had to do was cry at him. He would come to me and say, "Just make your mom happy. It will make her so happy if you just do this." He would always look so exhausted, so I would do it for him, not her, just to make his life easier. The wedding is still several months away and I mentioned that since we are now having a ceremony, maybe we should have a buck and doe as well to raise money for it. For those who don't know, a buck and doe is a public party that people buy tickets for and attend to help the bride and groom raise money for their wedding. They are very fun and have games, music, dancing, and lots of adult beverages. My husband and I figured that we would have a small wedding as planned with just the immediate family, and then a big fun party for everyone else. The money raised at the buck and dough would pay for the party. My mom said absolutely not because you have to have friends for that kind of thing, and no one would want to go to your buck and dough. I was so depressed by that, I took it pretty hard and felt like an utter piece of trash. She went on to say that my extended family would never go and his family lived several hours away and would never come to anything so trivial. She just kept beating me down about it until I finally gave up trying. If you're wondering why I kept including her, I was very naive about weddings. I had no idea what I was doing and my mother was the only person that I could ask about it. But then I was hoping that maybe for once she might put me first instead of herself and actually do something fun with me. There was so much potential for bonding, but that wasn't to be the case. To continue, I wanted to save some money on a cake, so I wanted to bake one myself and have fun with it. Nope, she had already told her alcoholic sister-in-law that she could be in charge of my cake for whatever reason. The cake for the party was pretty decent to be fair. Just a simple vanilla slab cake, nothing fancy. The aunt that made it was super insecure about it though and accused me of not liking it. Turns out my mom said that I hated it, which I didn't of course. I wanted to get a nice dress, something I could wear again like a sundress. She got very excited and said that she knew the perfect place to take me and that now I can tell all my friends that I helped pick out your dress. Oh dear Lord, no. But there was my browbeaten father telling me to just go with it, that I didn't have to buy anything if I didn't want to. Good thing too. Now, I'm not a skinny lady, I'm thick as heck in all the right places, and that means finding clothing is a hard thing for me. So having a wedding dress custom made for my hourglass body was going to be expensive. So a sundress from a plus-size store is what I was going for. My mother is very skinny and looks like a Sears catalog model. So naturally she took me to a wedding dress shop that only caters to petite women. The lady in the store took one look at me when we entered the store and flat out said, "We don't carry anything in your size." And I don't know who does that. I was embarrassed. I would never go to a store like that usually, and my mom thought it was very funny and laughed at me on the ride back home, saying, "Well, what did you expect? Wedding dresses are for skinny women, so I guess you will either need to lose weight or do something else." Like, what the actual hell? I told her I wanted to get a sundress. I told her to go to a plus-size store to shop with me. Instead, she took me to a petite store 4 hours away and then refused to go anywhere else. I got a dress from a kiosk in the mall a week later. I just told her that it was lavender and she would have to deal with it. I was just done at that point, depressed and self-loathing. I took over and my husband was mad at me for letting it get out of control like that. There was nothing we could do though. By that point, the wedding was a week away and we had handed my father money for the party. Potluck, barbecue, surprise pizza and beer. So we just decided to throw all the cares out of the window and just ride it out, which worked way better than I had hoped. We didn't want a priest or pastor or shaman or anything else of the sort to tie the knot, just a justice of the peace. My dad said he knew a guy and had us covered. Cool. Cue the day before the wedding, and we are introduced to a very sketchy-looking pastor that hands us a piece of paper with a ceremony my mom has picked out for us. It had a very odd poem in the middle of it that was strange to say the least. My husband and I locked eyes and stifled laughter while listening to inappropriate poem. My mom was elated. Now she could tell her friends that she picked a ceremony as well. The day of the wedding comes and my husband's family shows up in the morning, his parents and 2 brothers. But my mom is nowhere to be seen. Just my dad and my brother roaming around the house. I'm all dressed up in my lavender dress, and the wedding is about to be at noon with the party happening for everyone else the next day. I asked my dad where she is and he mutters quietly that she went to a quilt show and wouldn't be back until that night. A quilt show. Now, many of you would have said screw it, I'm going to go ahead and do it anyway without her. But I guess the night before she had taken the pastor aside and told him it wasn't going to be until the evening, leaving us completely in the dark. So we waited around and laughed at how absurd it all was. 6 p.m. rolls around and the pastor shows up ready for business. My mom shows up about 20 minutes later laughing about how we can't start until she has a shower and gets dressed. I tell her that this has been totally unacceptable, that she knew when it was supposed to be and that she purposely decided to disrespect not only myself and my husband, but also his family as well. She said that I was being ungrateful. We all stood in silence until she came out, and I looked at her and said, "Are we allowed to start now? Do you need a snack? Did you go to the bathroom first?" I would normally never be rude like that, but I was just done. She looked embarrassed and fake smiled and said it was fine. The man went on with the ceremony, and when he got to his odd poem, just as we had predicted, all the brothers lost it. We all laughed hysterically. My mother was pissed and hissed at us to all stop laughing, but we couldn't. It was the best thing. My dad and husband's parents were roaring with laughter. After the wedding was done, she went to sulk in her room. How dare we have fun? The party the next day was a blast. We did everything we could think of to have fun despite my mother constantly trying to get me to hide away from the party. She was literally trying to get me to clean the house and do dishes while the party was going on so that she could mingle and drink. At one point, I just laughed and said no. Shotgun a tall boy of Busch Lights in front of her, who is my husband's cousin, and suggested that we all have a big bonfire to send out the night. Mom huffed and took my dad in the house to yell at him about it. My poor dad. My mom resurfaced after a while and sat at the fire. She smiled at me and proceeded to start telling embarrassing stories about my childhood. The kind you don't tell people that you aren't too familiar with. The dramatic kind. My husband and I were quite tipsy by that point and decided that since most of the family was either leaving or going to bed, we would round up the stragglers and see if they wanted to go to the local bar. Everyone was tired, so my husband and I walked to the bar, all done up in our wedding duds, in true rural small-town class. We had redressed in our wedding clothes for the party because why not? It was awesome. My mom got control of what was left of the party and we got to tell the town about our marriage. I met old school teachers, classmates, and even the former town mayor. We didn't need to pay for drinks for the rest of the night and played darts and pool with everyone there. When we got back at 3 a.m., we cleaned everything up from the party and started up the campfire again to cook breakfast. We got to hear about how cringy my mom was after we left and how my husband's aunt told her off on her way to bed. That whole series of events led to me fully coming to the realization that my entitled mother would never change. She would always disrespect me. After 10 years of no contact soon after my wedding, we finally started talking again. This time I set the boundaries and there isn't a thing she can do about it. Moral of the story? Do what you want for your special day. If someone doesn't like it, it's not your problem. Just because a person is family doesn't give them the right to treat you badly. Hey everyone, hope you're doing well and having a good time. I've got some exciting news for you. I've just launched a brand new channel called Crown Corner that I will be narrating stories on it daily myself. Let's just say that if you love hearing about unbelievable entitled people and those unforgettable Karens, you're going to love what's in store on the new channel. So here is what I need from you, my good friends. Head over to the new channel, you'll find a link in the description below, and hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you won't miss out on any of our wild stories. Your support means the world to me, and I can't wait to see you there. Let's keep the stories rolling. Thank you so much for being part of this journey with me. And now, let's dive into our stories. I'm a 52-year-old man that works as a butcher at a pork processing plant, and I never encountered the Karen in my hometown. Background: I live in a town of about 20,000 people in southeast Iowa. I've lived here my entire life minus 6 years that I spent in the military and serving in Operation Desert Storm. Yeah, it's been 25 years. I was discharged in 1996. But it serves a relevant point that people always tend to miss with the ones they know nothing about. This story. The other day I was at a neighborhood grocery store. We will call it HV to keep anonymity. And was buying a couple loaves of bread as I had run out. Now at HV, their work uniform is a red polo shirt with the company name embroidered on the left breast area in white, khaki or black pants, and different colored aprons. Black for the deli/meat counter, red for floor and front area, green for floral, and white lab coats for the pharmacy. I couldn't have been in the aisle for 10 seconds when I felt a pair of eyes on my shoulder. I turned with a start, causing the woman directly behind me to give me a frown. I will call her Karen. I tell her, you shouldn't stand behind people like that. You don't know how they will react. I need your help. Stupid me didn't register the way she said that, which should have set off the alarm bells. Now there are people out there that state their anger is on a short fuse. I don't have a fuse. I have a button. Push it and it's Armageddon. One thing I do have to admit though, I've been pretty good at keeping it suppressed. I'm usually very level-headed. I mean, I've had enough violence in my life. I would give anything if I had just lived in peace. I tell her, if you want help, you should ask one of the employees. I am. Huh? The realization suddenly hits me like a tank. And that she's talking to me. Ma'am, I don't work here. I was wearing a black t-shirt, black cargo pants, black socks, and black sneakers. There was nothing about how I was dressed that said I work here. However, Karen must have been blind, as well as deaf. Don't lie to me. You work here. By this time, I can feel me starting to lose control. This insufferable oaf was wearing my patient thin. What about my clothes says that I work here? You're wearing an employee uniform. You need to help me. Now. Oh, bad move, Karen. Now, I'm about 6'1" and weigh about 210 pounds. I'm not a small guy and my voice is fairly deep, meaning when my volume goes up, I can get very intimidating. So much so, I've made more than a few people scared of me. And at this point, manner have gone out of the window. I'd had enough. Me, matching shrill scream was booming growl. What part of out of work here? Do you not understand, you irritating pencil neck? After Karen loses the surprised look on her face, she pulls up her fists and gets this I'm going to beat you up look. I see this, and at the same time I notice a couple of employees behind me, so I return her look with a go ahead and try it look. I say, fair warning. You swing on me like a man, you better be prepared to take a punch like a man. Well, Karen relaxes her hands, then she hauls off, and she slaps me across the face, knocking my glasses off and scraping the bridge on my nose. It did bleed a bit, but the kicker was that she was laughing. Apparently, Karen must have thought I wouldn't do anything. However, she got tangled with the wrong guy. She turned to look at me, and I put her on her butt with a slap across her face as well. I warned you. Karen decides to play her trump card. I am going to have you arrested. I smiled wildly and pointed to the security cameras installed in the ceiling to each end of the aisle. Have a nice day, witch. I grabbed my 2 loaves of bread and walked up front to pay, while Karen frog marched to the office in the back of the store. I found out the next day the grocery store decided to suspend her from the establishment for 30 days. Sucks to be her.
And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.